Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch. I buy a lot of watches. I've averaged over 50 a year for the last 2 years. That means that I sell a lot of watches as well. I would go broke and not be able to get into my studio if I didn't. And a lot of the watches that I buy and then sell again have been Seikos. Seiko is such an important brand at the affordable end of the market. Really, they are the biggest brand, and I feel therefore that I have to review every key piece, every key release. As a consequence, I have bought at least 50 Seikos over the last 6 years, but I have sold quite a few of them on shortly thereafter, sometimes a little too swiftly. Now I have rebought a couple, but there is one that has been playing on my mind. I liked it a lot and probably sold it too quickly. Now I did hint at this in my top 10 Seikos video under $1,000 earlier this month, so if you watched that video, you probably know what I'm going to unbox today. Tell me, leave me a comment, let me know what Seikos you have bought and then sold and then regretted and perhaps even rebought. I wonder how many of you will have rebought the same watch that I did. Now, you saw the pop-up. Today's Seiko is a Japanese domestic market version, which means that I got it from Japan, which means that I got it through buyee.jp, the Japanese proxy buying service that allows you to shop as if you actually were in Japan. They gave me a voucher to help with some of the cost of the watch, and if you sign up to the service, they will give you a voucher as well to help with the cost of your first watch, or whatever else you want to buy using their service. I'll leave a link and the voucher code in the description of the video, and for the next 20 seconds I will tell you about the buyee buying experience. It's pretty simple really. You shop as if you were in Japan. You've got access to Rakuten, to Yahoo, even to Amazon if you want. You simply type in what you're looking for and can browse as if you were a Japanese domestic customer. When you find what you like, you pay buyee and they buy the item for you. It's shipped to them, they check it is what you want before shipping it on to you. It's perhaps a little more complicated than just buying from a specialist store, but you have so much more choice. You've got access to second-hand watches if you want to buy something old or discontinued, and you've got so many more choices when it comes to new watches, meaning you can find the best deals. I've used buyee maybe 8 or 9 times now, and I've always got exactly what I ordered. But what did I order this time? Let's flip the camera and find out. Okay then, so you know where I got it from, Japan. You know what's inside brand-wise anyway, it's a Seiko, but what model is it? Big box. Big box for not a particularly big watch. That's your last clue. Let's get into it. Oh, it looks like I got a free thing. Oh, I got a free umbrella. Hey, I got a free Seiko umbrella. That's not bad. There we go. Seiko on the handle. I'm not sure if it has Seiko on the top of the umbrella. I'm not going to open it up inside because of course it will bring me bad luck for years. Hey, never say no to a freebie. Yeah, I'll definitely use that one. At some point maybe I'll slip it in one of the door bins of my car. So on to the watch then. As I said, this is a Japanese domestic version of a watch that is commonly available, and I noticed a kind of interesting thing when I was researching this one. It seems the Japanese domestic version is worth more outside of Japan, and the non-Japanese version is worth more in Japan, so clearly I bypassed that issue by buying the Japanese domestic one in Japan itself. Okay, Seiko, yep, not quite sure what that says. I guess it's a warranty, 1-year warranty if you're buying anything from overseas. Same applies if you're buying it from Amazon or from eBay, generally speaking. So, drum roll please, what have we got inside the box? We have got a mini turtle. You probably guessed it, I waxed lyrical about it in my top 10 Seikos video. I have missed this little guy more than I thought I would, and yeah, the Japanese version has the red second hand and the red line of text on the dial. So this model is an SBDY085. That's the RRP in Japan, 56,100 yen. Of course, I didn't pay that nor nothing like it. I paid 20% less than that at 44,800. That's the benefit of buying. You can shop around and get the best price. I did have to pay import tax like all purchases you bring into Australia. there's usually a voucher for free shipping as well, and I was able to take advantage of one of those too. Looks like there are a few stickers for us to peel off as well today, mostly on the bracelet. Yeah, I bought a mini turtle, the black and white version without the red, back at the beginning of 2019, and I sold it sometime in the middle of 2019. I didn't have it for all that long. I'm not saying I've lost sleep over it. I haven't lied awake staring at the ceiling, crying into my pillow, but I have thought of it more than most of the other Seikos that I have bought and then sold. I just felt that I got rid of it a little too quickly. I've handled plenty more Seikos since then, but this one just wears so well. It has a remarkable kind of trick in terms of the dimensions, because I'll show you them in full in a second, but that's 42, that is only 43, and that is amazing. Nothing on the dial today, but one last sticker covering the case back. The classic blue Seiko sticker covering the kind of great wave that is on there. Yeah, it is nice to see this little guy again, I must say. Let's get it sized. It's a pin and collar system. Let's get it set and let's return with dimensions. Alright, so that process took about 20 minutes, but it also took about 20 years of my life expectancy. Pin and collar systems can go either way. This not a particularly easy one. The collars are in the outer links. They can drop in, they can drop out, they can stick to the end of my link remover tool as they did on several occasions. So naughty Seiko. Nice to see this little guy back on the bench after an absence of 4 years though, I must say. Now I hinted at a couple of the dimensions. I call it little because it's the mini turtle. I'm not the only one, but it's a full-size watch. 42.3mm in diameter, which I'm sure most people would regard as full size. 12.8mm thick, but only 43 on the nose, lug to lug. 20mm lug width, there's a bit of a taper down to 18, back up to 20 at the clasp, sized up for my 7-inch wrist, 158 grams. So full size, full weight, and yet that lug to lug means this one is perfect for smaller wrists. Indeed, when I reviewed it back in 2019, I referred to it as the best Seiko diver for smaller wrists. Now, if you have really small wrists, the drilled lugs are definitely going to be a bit of a boon. Very nice finishing. Seiko's polish is always so smooth to touch, and you've got a piece of brushed upper section there, matching the brushed upper surfaces to the bracelet. It is a 120 click unidirectional rotating dive time bezel. Typical kind of Seiko feeling. They've got that kind of notchety, ratchety feel. Now, always with my heart in my mouth when I open the packet on a new Seiko. This one, well, the chapter ring lines up with the dial. I'm not sure that the bezel is quite on though. Yeah, if I give it a little squeeze, that's not too bad, all things considered. And again, just as I remember it, not a lot of articulation, not a lot of flex in that bracelet whatsoever. These are single links pretending to be 3 separate links in an oyster style. At least they have got some mixed finishing there, kind of satinized brushing on most of the surfaces, and there is a high polished element to the edges of that pseudo central link. Female end links as well. Yeah, no problem for smaller wrists, even on the bracelet, but just pop it on a rubber strap or leather strap or something using those drilled lugs. Now, the clasp is not too bad considering it's an entry-level Seiko Prospex diver. You've got Seiko stamped in the fold over, double security pushers. Now it is only a pressed upper and pressed lower, but it does have 4 holes of micro adjust, and it does have a diver's extension. If I can get my clipped nails under there somehow. There we are. That should pop out, unclip, and yeah, a little bit rattly, but if you will insist on diving with your dive watch, then hey, there is a diver's extension there for you should you require it. You got a sneak peek at the case back earlier on when I peeled off the sticker. All pretty standard Seiko stuff, high polish, again, high polish on the side. It really does sit nice and smooth on the back of the wrist. Wave in the center, Prospex X, advertising that it is a divers with an apostrophe, so ISO certified as 200 meters, and it contains a 4R35 movement. Most people know that as the NH35 24 dual hacking and hand winding, date complication at the 3 o'clock 40-hour power reserve, and a pretty loose set of tolerances, to be honest. One other key thing to note on the back of the case, made in Japan because this is a domestic market model. Let's take it outside and have a look at the dial and hands under macro lens. It's got those embossed indices. I wouldn't describe them as applied, but they're certainly not printed. They look like they have been pushed through from the back. I've never actually taken one of these apart to verify that though. High polished silver surrounds to those indices, and they are large indices despite the fact that the dial of the watch is not particularly large. Signature Seiko handset with syringe tips. I do really like the splash of red. The last one I had was just black and white. This red just breaks that up a little bit on the second hand, and on that third line of text underneath the Prospex X automatic and divers with an apostrophe 200 meters. One other controversial element of the Mini Turtle is that circular cyclops over the date complication. I don't mind cyclopses myself. I know some people can't stand them. At least it's a 4R35 and only has a date complication rather than those even more controversial and polarizing candy bar cyclops on the King Turtle and King Samurai, etc, etc. Aluminium bezel insert, fully graded with loom pip. It has to have a loom pip for it to be ISO certified, of course. Despite the fact that the bezel insert is fairly slim, those numerals are actually fairly large and fairly legible as a consequence. Before I get it on wrist, I may as well show you the loom as well. Seiko's proprietary LumiBright, of course, as they use on all of their watches. I describe LumiBright as a solid 7 out of 10. I've never had a Seiko win an installment of Loom Wars, despite their featuring in every single installment of Loom Wars, but they never disappoint either. Always a solid performance, especially considering the relatively modest asking price of the Mini Turtle. And there it is, back on my wrist after a number of years of absence. Yeah, a really nice size, this one. Short lug to lug, female end links, but a full size watch, meaning you get a good dial and handset, plus a good sized numerals on the bezel as discussed. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Bit of a cuff this bracelet though, not a lot of flexibility at all. If you wear it loose, yeah, you're not going to get the compliance that you get from a Jubilee on the SSK or the SKX. Obviously, but you do get a much better clasp than you do find on an SKX, that's for sure. Overhead legibility also pretty good, just what you'd expect from a Seiko diver. Black and white would be a little bit stark, but there is just that touch of red to break it up, which I think helps a lot. All this use of the word mini suggests that this is a small watch, but it isn't actually a small watch. Now, I have bought and sold a lot of Seikos, but I've also kept a lot of Seikos. Let's see how this Mini Turtle compares to a number of others in my collection that you may well have in your collection as well, starting with the Arnie. Yeah, okay, so it does look like a bit of a shrimp when it's next to the Arnie, but then most watches look a little bit weedy next to the Arnie. There's a clue in the name. I suppose it also looks a little bit small when compared to a Tuna. Another Seiko watch that wears remarkably well considering its large diameter dimension because it has a small lug-to-lug dimension. When I put it side by side with the SKX 007 though, the watch that the Mini Turtle was rumoured to be a direct replacement for, you can see it's pretty much on par, but you can also see it has a shorter lug-to-lug than the old large size SKX. That means it also has a more compact lug-to-lug than the contemporary GMT, the SSK, a watch that I am a big fan of also. This final comparison though is very instructive. This is it side by side with my SKX 013. Definitely not an SKX 013 size of watch in terms of the diameter, but once again, the Mini Turtle has the shorter lug-to-lug. So it's the big watch you can wear even if you have smaller wrists. There is one more side-by-side comparison that I've got coming up, though I'm saving that for the Moans and Niggles section. Nice segue, Jody. Well, my complaints here are the same as the complaints I make when I review pretty much every other entry-level Seiko Prospex diver, starting with the dial covering. Hardlex mineral crystal, not sapphire crystal. They call it Hardlex, but it isn't really that hard. It will scratch, it will scuff in a way that sapphire simply would not. The Orient Kamasu that's been out about as long as this Mini Turtle has showed that you can put sapphire crystal on an entry-level dive watch for around $200. This costs more than $200. This should have sapphire in my opinion. Unsigned crown as well, always a bit of a moan. How much would it really have cost them to put an S on there to make it look pretty? And it is a stiff bracelet. Obviously you can buy alternatives from strap code, but if you start putting strap codes on these and then changing that out for sapphire, you're adding 50-60% onto the top of the purchase price of the watch, which is not ideal. You should probably have just bought something else in the first place, shouldn't you? Talking of which, the last side-by-side comparison with the Steeldive 1970, aka the Willard Homage. These are all over AliExpress for $100 with sapphire crystal, ceramic bezel insert, screw down crown, 200 meters of water resistance, very similar standard of case finishing, perhaps a slightly inferior bracelet, but not that much inferior, to be honest. Yeah, a lot less money, about a third of the price of one of these mini turtles. The mini turtle definitely wears smaller than the Willard, that's for sure. You can see it's going to wear smaller when I show you the two cases side by side. The mini turtles is a couple of mil smaller, but that's not to say the Steeldive is unwieldy on wrist, because it just isn't. And it's ridiculous value for money. But there is a reason why I have returned to the mini turtle after a number of years away. There's a reason why the mini turtle never really left me. It was always in the back of my mind, kind of nagging me that I had sold it too soon and I really ought to pick up another one. And that's because it wears so nicely. Thanks for making it all the way to the back end of the video. While you're here, why not check out my original review from 2019, or why not check out the review of the Steeldive 1970 instead? I hope to see you all again in a future video.